Welcome, ladies. Yeah, so today we're talking about sleep, sleep and how to sleep better in perimenopause. And you might not even be in perimenopause or already in menopause, but we do know that sleep becomes more and more difficult as we get older. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about why that is today and what you can do to improve your sleep, right? So, quickly, for those who don't know me, I'm a native German country girl. So I grew up on the countryside in Germany, but I live now in Belgium. I've traveled a lot. I've lived a little bit in Australia, in the US, in France, and now I ended up in Belgium. So I do love traveling and I love nature, and I've always been passionate about natural remedies or alternative medicine and basically foods to heal my body. And this is also how I kind of came into becoming a functional nutritional therapy practitioner, and then further on training to be a master restorative wellness practitioner. So today I'm actually dedicating my practice to busy women in midlife to balance their hormones naturally. And I've actually been struggling with migraines most of my life, especially hormonal migraines. So that's especially a focus in my practice. But enough about me. Let's talk about the sleep, right? I quickly already talked about the agenda. So we're going to talk first about the root causes of sleep issues in perimenopause and actually also in menopause. Um, and then we're going to talk about what you can do, my best tips for you to actually get better sleep, and some of my favorite herbs that you can use to support sleep, besides the techniques that I'll be sharing with you. All right, so let's get started. So why are you not sleeping well anymore in perimenopause? Well, the first thing I actually see is blood sugar issues, and that you don't have to wait to be 40 to have blood sugar issues, of course, but what actually happens is that our blood sugar is further impacted or becomes more sensitive with declining hormones like estrogen especially. And I actually have a couple of clients who struggle with insomnia, and we're really it was a long discussion, and I insisted on looking at the blood sugar piece. And so finally now we have we have been working on that, and it's finally actually getting better now. So this is a client I'm thinking of who's been struggling with insomnia. So yeah, basically blood sugar is a huge piece, and it's basically when you're on a blood sugar roller coaster during the day, it just continues like that during the night, and that will wake you up and will also often cause you not to be able to get back to sleep again. Then the second one is actually lack of progesterone. That's impacting the quality of your sleep. So I was I always have it like in the last days of my cycle, just before I get my menses, that my just gets worse and worse, and I feel like I'm just tossing and turning and not really getting any of the deep sleep. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. And of course, as you probably know, in perimenopause, our progesterone is the first hormone to decline. That can actually start as early as 35 years on. So you don't have to be 40 or 45 for that to happen. It often actually happens much earlier than that. And it's usually not like a big dip. It's kind of a subtle change. So you will probably actually just see it maybe get worse and worse throughout the years. Um, so progesterone is a big one, but also then, so progesterone is the first hormone to decline. And then as we get further into perimenopause, and that also depends on, how these, everyone is going through these things differently. Some women have, 12 years of subtle, light hormone decline, and other women go up until they are 48 and they don't feel anything. And then, they go into menopause and it just all happens really drastically for them. So that's kind of depending a little bit on your genetics, and it's probably good thing to ask your mom, or maybe you remember how your mom was dealing with this. That's kind of a good indicator of how you will also be experiencing this time of your life. But yeah, basically the second hormone to decline then is estrogen. And estrogen is also impacting our sleep. But estrogen is more the kind of sleep disruption that's insomnia, like trouble falling asleep and also waking up and not being able to fall back asleep. Yeah, and then another reason is your liver. So your liver, as those who've been following me for a while, I always talk about the liver and how important the liver is for hormone balance. And I mean, if you consider your liver is your main detox organ, and basically everything you consume, that you put on your skin, that you eat, you drink, breathe, it all goes by your liver. Your liver has to detox everything. So just consider how many toxins you're exposed to on a day, and how much plastic you're touching, or those are already like a lot of things. Then if you're using conventional beauty products, there's lots of toxins in those. Maybe you're eating food with that's sprayed with pesticides, and I mean there's so many sources of toxins. And also if your blood sugar is too high, or if you're going through the blood sugar roller coaster, your liver is impacted every time, because your liver is basically also consulted on this pathway, let's say, to store away excess glucose as fat. So all that, every time you get too much sugar in your blood, your liver is working on shoving that away into your fat cells. Yeah, so your liver is really, and your liver is also detoxifying or detoxing used up hormones in your body. So, if your liver is like, overworked, the piles up, the desk is piled up like this, you can imagine that also your hormone balance will actually suffer from that. And many women actually suffer from hot flashes, just because they're, if you clear out the liver and you support the liver health, that's actually all they need at some point often, even especially if you get hot flashes very early in like where you might say, well, I'm not, it's too early for me to be in menopause, I'm perimenopause, like, wow, what's going on. Sometimes it's just your liver that needs some support, and that will help. So the liver is actually working typically between 1 and 3 a.m. at night, and that's also typically the time when you would wake up, when your liver is too busy or like overburdened. So that's a good indicator that your liver might need some love. But of course, it will also, like, if your liver is not well, you will get unclear skin. You will get maybe like breakouts or pimples on your skin. You will get bloating or gas as well. So I mean, there's different indicators for liver health. Sorry. And then the last one is high cortisol. So cortisol, as you know, is your stress hormone. And that's actually also linked to like most of the other things I already mentioned. So if your blood sugar is like going up and down, that's also triggering your cortisol response. If your blood sugar is getting too low or too high, that will every time trigger a stress response in your body. But there's also other things that will impact your cortisol secretion for sure. And cortisol is actually very much linked to, so cortisol is what wakes you up in the morning, right? So it really defines your circadian rhythm. And usually it will be high in the morning, and then it will just go slowly, it will wane until it goes like very low at the end of the day when you go to sleep. But for some people, a lot of activity in the evening, using screens and watching TV, working late on the computer, scrolling through TikTok or Instagram. So all these blue light emitting screens, they're stimulating your brain, and that will also impact basically your circadian rhythm in that sense, and it might actually drive up your cortisol in the evening. So it will affect your ability actually to fall asleep, or it will keep you up at night. So there's many things, and I will talk about that in the following slides too, like that can cause high cortisol. So it's basically anything that's stressing you. So it can be mental stress, it can be physical stress. So it can also be exercising too late in the evening. When you exercise at maybe 7 or 8 p.m. and basically you've probably experienced this. I know I have, that you're like all wound off or pumped up and can't actually go to sleep anymore because you're so wide awake, right? So yeah, basically high cortisol levels it means you're kind of stuck in fight or flight mode. How about you? Are you stuck in fight or flight mode? This has actually happened to me a couple of times, I think, and it's really difficult to kind of get out of this. So of course, what helps is practices like meditation and mindfulness or body scans, these kind of things. But let's be honest, when you're in flight or flight, you're nervous and you're not able to sit down and meditate. And then somebody's telling you, oh, you should meditate. Oh yeah, it's going to calm you down. Yeah, sure, right? But you're all excited and you're all like wound up, and it's actually very difficult to find access to meditation at that time. And even if you do, your brain is kind of frozen on this mode. So yeah, you're basically, because of that, you're not sleeping well. You probably have high anxiety, and you're basically stuck in this kind of situation where you're lacking the sleep, which is affecting your overall health. It's affecting your hormone balance, and it's affecting your blood sugar levels and everything. So if you're not sleeping well, it affects all of these things, right? And then sleeping bad and having sensible blood sugar the next day and feeling crappy and having brain fog and feeling anxious, it will just basically set you up through that day. It will just basically set you up for the base of not sleeping well again and again and again. So that's kind of difficult sometimes to get out of this situation. And what I do with my clients is I work on with using adaptogens, like rhodiola, for instance, is a great herb, or ashwagandha as well. But I especially like rhodiola because it really helps your body to adapt to mental and physical types of stress. So and some people also have problems with ashwagandha, kind of converting it. It may actually stimulate testosterone, so that's not good sometimes. That's why also rhodiola is actually more recommended, because it's a more it has a less impact on other hormones like that. So that's a great herb. that's so it's basically not only focusing on the sleep part, but kind of focusing on the overall stress situation. And I just wanted to quickly share with you uh, a stress test. So I did this was a hormone panel I've done with a client to look at her hormone levels, and basically it's also was looking at her stress hormones. So this is, I just clipped out that part, basically looking at her cortisol. And so this client was struggling with insomnia. And so what you can actually see is that her morning cortisol is not too bad, but so what you should know is her morning cortisol was actually, so she actually, because she has insomnia, she actually took her first sample at 3:30 a.m. So if you consider that, you know, she woke up at 3:30 a.m., I mean, this is very high for her. So it's basically, this is actually in the middle of the night. So her cortisol is way too high in the night. And then it's kind of, well, the curve is kind of okay through the day. It's a little bit low, but then actually, and this what we could see here is it actually goes up again. So she has really this kind of afternoon slump where everyone, like around 4 p.m. is where everyone kind of gets, you know, cortisol levels are low and we get a little bit lower in energy. But it should continue actually in that trend and maybe go even lower so that we're able to go to sleep. But for her, it's actually going up. So that's also explaining why she's not sleeping well, because her cortisol is high. So in her situation, there's actually different things going on. So she's an athlete and she's probably exercising too much. So there's a lot of physical stress that's coming in. She's also basically following, you know, because she's doing this on a kind of almost professional level. You know, she has her training schedule, and so she's not sleeping, but she's training a lot. Despite the lack of sleep, and she's not able to actually say, well, I'm actually, you know, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, but and now I'm able to fall asleep again. No, because she has to get up and get in her training. So that's one thing. The other thing is the blood sugar. So I mentioned that before. So she you know, as an athlete, she's actually having a lot of snacks throughout the day and is eating, so she's not like eating unhealthy foods, but she's eating lots of these bars and also these kind of sugary drinks or shakes, and that, you know, that people would consume during a race or something like that. And basically what I asked her to do is wear a continuous glucose monitor. So for those who've been seeing, you know that I've been doing that experiment on myself, and I found it very powerful. And I really wanted her to see that too, and to really see, like, you know, how these snacks and what foods are impacting her a lot. So and she was also snacking on fruit. So she, you know, the first reading she shared with me was basically she had a banana while she was exercising, riding the bike, and she had a huge glucose spike from the banana, which is not surprising. And basically, I mean, when we saw those first readings from the continuous glucose monitor, I mean, she was definitely on a roller coaster like all day, and it just continued during the night. So we're slowly getting there now. So I'm really happy that we're making those changes, and that she's getting more and more sleep. So yay. But yeah, so that's let me come back to the topic. So first thing can be too much exercise, over exercise, or also, you know, it might not be exercise but something else that's a physical stressor for you. Then blood sugar, definitely a big one for almost everyone. Then another thing that can impact you is other things that stress you out. So this client actually also has, so one thing could be gut health. So if you have a poor microbiome, or basically lots of bacterial overgrowth in your microbiome, or even parasites, that can definitely also spike your, create a stress response in your body, and that can keep you up at night as well. And then another one are other systemic infections. So this client actually also, and that's also what we discovered through her stool panel, is that she actually had infections in her mouth that she wasn't aware of. So she's also working with her dentist to actually get rid of those infections. So it may not be your gut; it can be infections in other parts of your body, like your teeth. But it can also be underlying infections that other like sleeping viruses, and definitely for many people, COVID has kind of kicked off again other sleeping viruses. So we see that a lot, that people who have had COVID, that they will start suffering afterwards from maybe from some sort of long hauler symptoms, but it's basically because COVID is actually kicking off like old sleeping things or dormant things that were already in your body and that are reactivated again. Yeah, so let's recap. That was a lot of talk already. What's impacting your sleep are your hormones, right? So your progesterone levels are declining, but also your estrogen is declining at some point. And those will both impact your sleep in a negative and different ways. Then I've talked a lot about the blood sugar roller coaster, so I don't think I need to talk more about that now. Yeah, definitely it will keep on going like this during the night and impact your ability to sleep. And then high cortisol, so we just talked about that. Actually, it will wake you up at night, and it will also, if your cortisol is high, you will not be able to fall back asleep. And and that can be linked to to your nutrition, to mental stress. It can be gut health. It can also be blood sugar. As I said, if your blood sugar gets too low or too high, that will kick off a stress response. It can also be food sensitivities or parasites. And then also don't forget that, if you've basically experienced insomnia a couple of times, and you wake up at night and you go like, oh my God, and you start thinking about your presentation the next day, or whatever events you have planned for the next day, and that you will probably not be able to go back to sleep right now because, oh my gosh, it's happened before. And so now you're getting all wound up and stressed, right, about the fact that you'll probably not be able to go back to sleep and relax. And that's also increasing your cortisol levels and in kind of kicking off a stress response. So that's also something that you should definitely avoid. And I actually still have this on my to-do list. I'm using a lot with clients who are very stressed and anxious. I use EFT a lot. That's called EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. So I still have this on my to-do list to actually make a video for using EFT when you wake up at night to calm down and be able to go back to sleep. So once I've done that, I will definitely share that with anyone who's interested, and also put it on my YouTube channel. So, but let's talk about what you can do to sleep better, right? That's why you're here. So the basic rules for better sleep is diet-wise, really, to avoid the blood sugar roller coaster. Start your day off with a high-fat and high-protein breakfast. And I mean, you've if you've been following me, you've heard this so many times. I mean, I feel like a broken record, kind of saying it again and again. But that's really the number one thing, the number one rule. And if you have snacks or basically all meals you have throughout the day, fat, fiber, protein, right? FFP. Have early dinner. If you're eating too late, that will impact your ability to fall asleep because your stomach is still busy digesting your meal. And I'll talk a little bit about, basically also eating too heavy is not great at night. I mean, pizza is kind of the worst food, I guess, that you can have because it's a high carb and basically it's also high fat, but not the good fats. So it's like very heavy and carby. So it kind of puts you in a coma usually after you've had it, and it's very hard to digest, and it's not good for your digestive system actually, as you can imagine. So that's kind of the worst food you could eat at night. But actually, I do have an avoid rule as slide as well. So I'll talk about more about the things to avoid. So have early dinner, have a great, high fat, high protein breakfast, and that could be eggs or any meat or breakfast sausages or fish if you like, salmon. Some people are able to eat salmon or other fish in the morning. Make sure you get in some veggies, and if you don't feel eating these things, try making a smoothie with coconut milk and salad or spinach leaves, so that you can get in some good fats and some or avocado as well, and able to get in some fiber and veggies as well. And in a smoothie, of course, for protein, you would more go plant-based, and you would or use like a collagen powder or like a protein powder. And that would be like a lighter version. I do recommend more eating something real, like eggs and meat and or fish with veggies. It could be leftover veggies from dinner, cooked or salad. But I do understand that some people are not like really able to eat that or don't like that in the morning. Also, making a frittata with eggs is really great, and you can put a lot of veggies in there and just don't put any potatoes. So there you go. So that's a good way, I guess, to make something quick and easy, and also budget friendly. That's very nutrient dense. But then also make sure your bedroom is pitch dark. So really make sure it's dark. And if you don't have curtains that are completely blacking out your room, or anything else, then put on a sleeping mask. That's what I do. I always travel with this as well, because when I sleep at hotels or Airbnbs or wherever, you never know how they're equipped. So I know I will not be woken up or by lights during the night, or yeah. Make sure your bedroom is not too hot. So the temperature definitely does have an effect. So if it's too warm, you will not actually be able to go to sleep, and it's also your body's not entering this kind of deep sleep when it's too warm. So, and I mean, that from when it's really hot in summer, that usually you don't sleep well. But yeah, definitely, it should be, your bedroom should have like, 16, 17, 18 degrees, but not much more than that. So it's better, if you're cold, it's better to have a bigger blanket than having the air around you being hot. And then what I really recommend is doing some sort of mindfulness activity before you go to bed, some sort of meditation or body scan or like a yoga nidra. And it can just be, 5 minutes or 10 minutes, so it doesn't have to be too long. Also, journaling is really great before going to bed because it kind of helps you, especially if you're somebody like me who has like constant, mind racing going on, thinking about things over and over. It's really great actually to write down everything that's in your head. So it's kind of, you kind of feel at ease, if you've kind of dumped it on the paper and you're not going to forget about it. So that's also a good thing that I actually haven't listed here, that you can do for better sleep. And then what's also great is taking magnesium biglycinate before like 30 minutes before the bed. And that will that's a very relaxing form and a very absorbable form of magnesium. So that will support better sleep for sure. And then another one is actually linked to your circadian rhythm. That's avoiding the screens, as I said. If you're working late or watching TV or kind of scrolling on your phone, you really want to avoid that to be able to go to sleep. And what I actually do is I'm wearing these ugly these ugly blue blocking glasses at night when I watch TV, or basically I put them on also when I try to not work late, not later than 8. I usually stop at 8 at the latest. But if I do work later, I always make sure I'm wearing my ugly glasses. But yeah, basically your body is already producing melatonin in the morning, so it already starts with getting enough sunlight in the morning. So ideally you would go first thing in the morning. You're really exposed to bright light, and that can be challenging in winter. So I always I have invested a couple of years ago in a winter light, or like a light therapy light. I don't know how you call these things. So you can actually make sure if it's like gray and dark out all day, you actually get enough of that light in the morning. And then so basically the bright light will stimulate your melatonin production, which is actually in your pineal gland, produced in your pineal gland. And then bright light will increase the production, but so that your pineal gland is secreting melatonin, you want the red light. So that's when it's dark at night, or you're using these kind of glasses really, and basically any bright light in the evening is blocking the release or the secretion of melatonin. So and what's actually melatonin, right? I haven't even mentioned that. So, I mean, most of you probably know, but melatonin is a hormone that's produced by your body, as I said, in the pineal gland. So everyone's producing it, and it's the hormone that's actually making you sleepy. That's, if you have enough of it, you don't have trouble falling asleep, for sure. And melatonin is also it's a very popular supplement actually for people who have sleep issues. But you might actually not need it. And I'll talk about a little bit. So there's also specific foods that contain melatonin, and that will and amino acids that will actually promote the production of serotonin. So there's a little bit more to it, and you might actually not need to take melatonin, but you may actually be able to increase certain foods in your diet, or supplement with different amino acids that could help you also for sleep. So that's actually what I'm doing at the moment, and that's actually working quite well. Yeah, and then the last one is actually boosting progesterone during luteal phase. So that's another thing, and I've written a blog article about tips to boost your progesterone levels. And at one point, you might actually opt for bioidentical progesterone. So it really depends. You know, some women are doing well with natural solutions or herbs to boost progesterone, but some women do much better with or actually don't have much success with that. And also depending on how old you are or how how well you are in the perimenopause menopause kind of journey, you will, yeah, basically at one point the plant solutions really don't actually help much anymore, and you probably find yourself needing the real progesterone support. And there is bioidentical progesterone, so that's a natural progesterone that's really exactly the same structure than what your body is producing. And that's really also what your body can use. So yeah, and I'm actually taking bioidentical progesterone just on the last days of my cycle, and that really helps me sleep well during those last days as well. Yeah. So things you should avoid for better sleep is, so I mentioned the pizza, but also don't drink alcohol. I mean, you may actually think it's relaxing you at the moment, and it probably is. But alcohol is also often very high in sugar, so it will impact your blood sugar levels, and kind of feed that blood sugar roller coaster. And it's actually, it's proven to negatively impact your hormones and also your sleep quality. So yeah, it's definitely a no. If you have trouble sleeping, stay away from alcohol, or make sure to drink it in the morning, like coffee. Well, coffee is another one. Yeah, not sure I would want you to drink alcohol in the morning. Maybe also not a good idea. Yeah, but yeah, it may seem like a no-brainer, but coffee, Coca-Cola, or Red Bull, or any energy drinks or any stimulating drinks are, yeah, I mean, they have caffeine, or also black tea has theine, even green tea. Although actually L-theanine, which is in green tea, especially in matcha, has found to have a positive effect on sleep. And it's also balancing out the caffeine from coffee. So yeah, but basically avoid stimulants too late in the day. Usually people do well with coffee if they just have it in the morning. But coffee also impacts your blood sugar actually, or coffee is actually triggering a cortisol response. So it depends. Some people are more sensitive than others. And some people actually may be able to drink coffee later than 2 p.m., but that's kind of the latest rule I give. And some people actually have to stop drinking coffee earlier than that. But as a general rule of thumb, all these caffeine kind of stays in the system for 6 hours. Yeah, so it takes, and that's also genetic. Some people actually take longer than that to decompose or like excrete the caffeine, and for some people it goes faster. So I already said avoiding the bright lights in the evening, especially the blue lights, but you want them in the morning for sure. Then yeah, and that goes with stop using screens too late. So ideally I guess 8 p.m., but don't don't go any later than 9 p.m. You definitely want to shut down your computer then, for sure. And also, make sure you actually don't drink too much before just before going to bed, because then you have to go up and pee during the night, right? So and maybe you won't be able to go back to sleep. So yeah, that's also something to consider if you have a weak bladder or yeah, depending on how much you drink as well. So let's talk about some herbs that can help you sleep better, that I've found success with. So I already mentioned L-theanine, which is in matcha and other green teas. Then passion flower is one I especially like because I really find it helps me with deep sleep. Chamomile is a very great herb as well that has anti-inflammatory properties, and it also has a calming effect, and it's very good for your digestive system. Passion flower is also just overall very calming. 5-HTP is actually a derivative of the amino acid tryptophan, which your body needs to produce melatonin and serotonin. So you definitely want a lot of it, and you mainly find it in protein, high protein foods, in any poultry, or mainly poultry and meats, but also dairy products and eggs. And the same actually goes for taurine. That's another amino acid. Some people have a lot of success actually combining magnesium and taurine for sleep. So taurine is actually known to kind of work on or basically help you balance kind of nervous, working on or helping to mellow your nervous response. It kind of helps, calm down the brain in that sense. So that's something you could consider. Then valerian is probably one that you kind of generally know. So that's a good, also the passion flower and chamomile. Those are good, like bad night teas that you could drink. And then GABA is a neurotransmitter that's also produced in the body. And actually, right now, I've found a supplement that's really helping me a lot. And it has it's called Zen Sleep, and it has GABA. So GABA is really it's a neurotransmitter that helps you calm. It's kind of a Zen calming neurotransmitter. It has L-theanine. It also has 5-HTP, and it does have vitamin B6, which is often also, you will also find that often in supplements that are for sleep enhancement. So that's a really great one that I recommend. And then there's melatonin. So we already talked about, your body's actually producing melatonin, but also GABA. And there's also specific foods that you can actually use to. So of course, melatonin is also available as a supplement. And it can help you, get to sleep, or if your circadian rhythm is a little bit off when you're traveling. But I would not take it consistently. I would really more focus on maybe taking those precursors, like the Zen Sleep. That the precursors for melatonin are 5-HTP, or tryptophan, magnesium. So basically, you want to make sure that you're getting these things, and you might actually not need the melatonin. And then you can also increase certain foods. So let's look at that. So you see on the pictures here, there's milk. the glass of milk. When you were little, you maybe had a glass of milk, but it's actually really good to promote healthy sleep. And there's also goji berries and tart cherries that are both high in melatonin. Nuts like almonds and pistachio mainly, and then fatty fish like salmon or mackerel or sardines, for instance. Eggs are also high in melatonin. Actually, who would have thought? So yeah, let's look at the list in detail, and I think I mentioned most of them. So the thing, of course, with goji berries and tart cherries is, and tart cherries you can actually find it also in, often combined with magnesium as a supplement. But yeah, basically, if you want to increase your melatonin, I mean, you need to eat an amount as well. And although goji berries are, I mean, I love them. They're also, they're really high in antioxidants, and they're really nutrient dense, and they're actually not too sweet, so they're set not to spike your blood sugar too much. But of course, if you eat like handfuls of them, which you probably need if you really want to increase your melatonin, then it's kind of defying the cause and, negatively impacting your blood sugar again. So that's also not what we want, right? So, yeah. Just one comment on milk. So milk is really great because it also contains the tryptophan, and it has and it does have melatonin. But the thing is, many people actually don't do well with milk, and they don't digest it well. So if you don't, then it's not a good idea, of course. What you may actually try is opting, because what really makes milk so undigestible is the process of overheating it. And when they put them in the Tetra Paks, in this homogenization process is basically heating and heating and heating, and that's kind of splitting up the sugars in the milk, and that makes them so and also the protein. So that's actually what makes the milk so undigestible for most. So you might actually, and I know when I was living in France, I was buying microfiltered milk. So in Europe, you can often find it in most countries. So it's something you may want to try if you have problem with the Tetra Pak homogenized milk. Yeah. And then fish is usually a better source of melatonin than meats. But on the other hand, most of the meats and poultry are really high in tryptophan and also in taurine. So definitely something you wanna have in your diet for sure. Nuts are great. I said pistachio and almonds are highest in melatonin. Then mushrooms are also great, and there's a specific mushroom called reishi that's been found to especially improve REM sleep. So REM sleep is the time when your brain is kind of regenerating and taking out the trash. So you definitely want that to happen, because that's when any accumulated amyloid plaque or protein will basically be cleared out. So you definitely want that to happen. So reishi can be great, but yeah, so you can find it as tea in Chinese supermarkets, but also there's a wealth of supplements online for sure. Just always pay attention to quality, because these things can often be contaminated with molds or other things. So yeah, you want to be careful with looking for that. And then bananas are actually a great food, because they have melatonin and tryptophan and also magnesium and vitamin B6. But they also have a lot of sugar. So as I mentioned, my client who was eating the banana on the bike, she was getting a big blood sugar spike. And so bananas are very sweet, of course, and I would not recommend anyone eating banana at night. But what you can do is actually can make a banana skin tea. And I've actually tried this before, and I found it very pleasant, the taste. So it's very sweetish, banana-y. So you can actually just boil the whole banana. Of course, you want to make sure you're getting organic ones, so you're not like cooking up the pesticides and drinking that. But you can also just what I used to do is when I was using bananas maybe for baking, I would just bake the banana peel with my cake in the oven a little bit, so they get very brown. But then you can kind of so they dry, and then you can kind of store them in a glass jar, and they get like really brittle. So you can actually mix it with other herbs. So you can make banana skin, passion flower, chamomile, valerian, for instance. So and the banana will definitely add a great taste to that. So that's something you could try as well for better sleep, for sure. Yeah, so that's actually everything I've had for you today. And yeah, it's been 50 minutes, so I hope you're still with me. If you have any questions, I will open up now for chat, and otherwise just reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram at Marike Steen. You can drop me an email. You can also check out my Facebook group, Holistic Health for Women, or just check out my website, marikesteen.com. So if you've enjoyed this, I'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions or any suggestions, just be in touch. Maybe just drop me a DM on Instagram. That's probably the easiest, or send me a direct message on Facebook. Anything that works for you. And yeah, wishing you sweet dreams and restorative sleep. And see you in the next session. Bye.